70 to 90% of our purchases are driven by eye, by colour. Figuring out what this dominant taste of your product is and then signalling it through shape symbolism and or colour symbolism is a good thing to do. Marketeers might try and capture your attention in a busy aisle by, as more and more shopping goes online, doesn't matter what it looks like on shelf anymore, but rather you should be thinking about how it appears on the typical screen.
Heston, so you work with him. Why was he such a genius?
He'd come up to Oxford to see my lab, but also to other departments to see other professors. So I've just been reviewing hearing and vision in film, thinking about, well, how do filmmakers use sound to augment the visual action? Is that very similar to how a chef might use music to augment a dining experience? How could you make the music in restaurants part of the story rather than just background music? There's nothing actually that gets our brains more excited than seeing our favourite food when we're hungry.
So what I'd love to start with is a quote from your book, but I'm going to butcher his name, but I think it's Theodosis Dobzhansky, which is, nothing makes sense in psychology except in the light of evolution. Could you unpack that? And I would say, how does evolution play a role in understanding psychology in surprising ways?
I suppose one might think about how our brains have evolved. What have they evolved for? Which might help to explain why we are the way we are. Maybe it's feeding, foraging, and fucking. I think it was the 3 Fs that our brains had to get right in order to survive. I focus mostly on the foraging and the feeding side of things. We think what we've got to do is figure out what's edible, what's inedible, what will poison us, what will keep us, make us big and strong, and thereby sort of be able to predict almost within the blink of an eye when you see any scene, say, is there anything edible? Okay, it's you.
Yeah.
And then, so find the most energy dense stuff in a scene and then pay attention to it. And that happens within a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And that suggests that's probably because our brains have evolved to find food.
Yes.
Essential for survival. And hence, so my colleagues in psychology, a lot of whom are not interested in food per se. I say, even if you're not interested in it, you should be, because that's what our brains have evolved for. It probably explains why our brains are, I think, cross-species, very close to the point of ingestion. Us in humans. Why is the brain next to the mouth? Probably because of its importance to feeding. Why can we see things so food, calculate the sort of energy density in images so quickly? Because we needed that for survival. And there's one other bit about it. What is it, the other thing? I mean, sort of our brain is our body's most bloodthirsty organ, using about 20% of blood energy. And hence, there's nothing actually that gets our brains more excited than seeing our favourite food when we're hungry, leading to about a 20% increase in cerebral blood flow, which is kind of massive, something that's, orders of magnitude bigger than you'd see for anything else in kind of a psychology experiment. And again, speaking to this idea of our brains' primary job, one of its primary jobs to find food.
Yeah. So you said, feeding, foraging, and fucking are the big 3.
Yep.
And so when we're in the savannas back in the day, our goal is with our senses to be able to see what is the most either nutrient dense or healthy or rich food to keep us alive, right? With those senses, and then I suppose now we're not walking down savannas, we're walking down supermarket aisles, right? What are some of the triggers that brands use? I know you've worked with a panoply of different brands to invigorate those senses.
So probably one of the key cues our brains use to figure out what's edible, what's energy dense, it comes from sight.
Yep.
So we can see things further away than we can smell them or hear them normally. And so colour's a very powerful cue there, setting our expectations about food. I'd say evolutionarily, maybe that's why sort of red colours tend to be associated with sweetness for most people, because fruits will go from green and sour and unripe with little energy to warmer, redder hues, sweeter and more energy dense. And if you learn that association of present in nature, the sort of statistical relationship between colours and taste or energy, then you know which trees to climb to get the fruit to keep you going. So colour in the savannah is probably very key cue.
Yep.
Maybe it could be sort of glossiness for fish eyes and such like, but primarily I think it's colour. And that's exactly probably the same thing in the supermarket aisles today, that colours used. Some of the marketeers would say, without really being able to provide the evidence, but they'd say something like 70 to 90% of, of our purchases are driven by eye, by colour in particular.
Yeah.
That's the first thing we see. I think that probably explains now, when we ask people today which is the sweetest colour, people go sort of a pinkish white rather than a rich red. And those pinkish whites you don't find so much in nature, I don't think. But in the supermarket, it is the colour of strawberry milk, of bubble gum, of strawberry yogurts. So I think we're learning these new associations in the marketplace. And that can be either from the colour of the product itself. And so marketeers might try and capture your attention in a busy aisle by using a different colour.
Almost subverting it.
Yeah. So it sort of starts out, maybe things initially have the colour they have. And then people start to think, well, wouldn't it be nicer if they were all the same colour, or it has a brighter colour, or like with, go back to 1900 and I guess bananas were pink or yellow. Then they decided they only wanted the yellow ones.
Yeah.
Oranges, were, I think, green in California, orange coloured in Miami, or vice versa. And they decided we want to get rid of the green ones. Orange ones look much nicer.
Wow.
So just through sort of breeding and such like, they could, in the old days, get the colours they wanted, add some sort of dye, annetto, I think it is, to butter to make it yellow throughout the year, because that normally depends on the season. So people have been modifying the natural colour of things for a long time. More recently, we have more sort of artificial chemical dyes that enable producers to come up with unnatural colours for things, or unusual colours for things. And that, my favourite example of that would be sort of blue. Gatorade or Slush Puppy came out with sort of blue, and it's kind of the first blue fruit-flavoured drink. So that sort of stands out in the aisle amongst all the yellows and greens and fruit colours.
So what's the thinking with that? Is that purely to get attention, or is the blue? Is there an evolutionary thing with it? Back to the foraging fucking?
So I think most of the things we think about food colours are probably learnt through experience. But maybe the innate one might be the sort of blues. And if you go back to the 1970s, the cultural commentators were saying, you'll never be able to sell a blue food or drink because there's no blue foods in nature, so it just won't fly. And one of my favourite, maybe apocryphal experiments done by, I think, a North American lighting engineer. Invites people around for dinner, serves them a meal of steak, chips and peas. It's kind of dim lighting, so you can't really quite see what you're eating. And then halfway through the meal, he just turns the lighting up to full, and these guests find out that the steak's blue, and the chips are red, and chips are green, and the peas are red. And then lots of them run off to the bathroom to be sick. So that sort of blue colour in meat or fish is seems very aversive, maybe because that indicates something that could poison us. So it's wise to. So that was the view then. And then come along Gatorade and Slush Puppy and teach us blue. No, you can sell it, at least if it's in a drink. You have, of course, in the cocktail category, blue curacao for a long time. And very recently, a lot of the Instagrammers use blue in sort of their social media posts. And Innocent Smoothies came out with Bolt from the Blue in 2018.
Yep.
Which is 99.4% regular guava and banana and fruit smoothie, but 0.6% blue colouring. And that is their most successful product launch ever.
Wow.
Simply by sort of hacking the meanings of colours.
Yeah.
And that sort of stands out then amongst all their other drinks. It looks kind of like sort of, blue paint.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't think it would sell, but it captures attention, which is great. And you either do that by changing the colour of your drink. So the white in wine's very kind of, is a very rapidly moving and dense category with lots and hundreds of bottles. So it's hard to stand out there in particular. So people come out with blue Monde, blue white wine, blue sparkling wine, just so it stands out. Years ago, we worked with the London Gin Company, and when they first came out with blue and pink gin, and they were getting all sorts of strange consumer complaints that the pink one tastes like pomegranates, and so we haven't changed the flavour or our sort of manufacture method, so we don't understand why they're saying these things. And it's all about the colour. So in that case, as is often the case, companies will choose a unique colour to stand out from the category. That captures attention, it might capture the first purchase, but then it may set the wrong expectations about the flavour, and hence you can get these sort of complaints down the line.
Yep.
Either from the colour, or sometimes from the colour of the packaging instead. So, you know, the sort of examples, I guess Bombay Sapphire comes out with a blue bottle rather than a blue drink, and that will stand out. And others like Coca-Cola, back in 2011, I think, for World Wildlife Fund campaign, came out with a white Coke can with polar bears on, and consumers complained it didn't taste the same.
Wow.
So the drink does look the same, but if you're drinking it direct from the can, I guess, then all you see is the colour of the packaging. And when that changes, again, it's bizarre, but it changes the expectations you have about the taste.
Yeah.
And thereafter, that can very often change the taste experience.
That's so interesting. So with a brand like Aperol Spritz,
Yep.
how much is the colour and the orange, you think, important to the success of that brand?
It's wholly important. I'd say three things I've been thinking about over the last few years. It would be sort of the rosé wine revival. Why has that come back into fashion in recent years? And that's because it's good, looks good in social media. It looks like you're having more fun than if you have a glass of white or red wine.
Yeah.
Aperol, again, it's a distinctive hue, and that stands out in the pictures. So it sort of signals, it's not really about the taste, it's about sort of visual signalling. I'm doing something different, better, having more fun. And more recently still, sort of Dubai chocolate, the same thing. I think it's...
Is it what I've spoken to Rory about? Is there like a mimetic effect with when other people see other people drinking the orange drink? And it's the same with Guinness. I think Rory talks about like the reason Guinness is so successful, it's so clearly distinctly a Guinness. But if they're drinking it, well, I want to drink it. Kind of that mimetic thing. That's so interesting.
And this, I guess, is... I guess people used to show each other their holiday snaps back in the day, but nowadays there's much more increased visibility and sharing.
Yeah.
And so I think any of these new food products or drinks products, you can't really understand their success based on the chemical composition or the taste or flavour. It just has to look visually distinctive, so that you can signal that you're doing something different, better, more fun, new.
Yeah. And
then others see that and then sort of copy it.
Yeah. I'm just
either from seeing somebody online doing it, and then next time you go out saying, "Oh, I'll have an Aperol Spritz today," or just in a social setting, seeing across the bar somebody ordering that, and that makes you think, okay, I know what they're drinking, and what do you want? Well, I'll have a.
When I was also, if you're in the high status cocktail bars, that you want that status, so you mimic what they're doing. Interesting. If Aperol was just what's the word? Just like not that orange colour. It wouldn't have that same. It's so fascinating. Is there any sort of links to, again, me just being curious here, to the sunset? Would that, like, as in like a holiday thing with the orange? I don't know. This is me being. I ask a lot of 2-year-old questions, but I don't know. Have you ever thought of that?
So certainly, it's suggested at least that the association between sort of yellow of egg yolks in the morning and for breakfast, and the orange of the
sunny
sun.
side up. Yeah.
So that these sort of colour metaphors or whatever they are do bias our food choices at that end of the day. I've heard it. I've never seen anyone talking about the sunset colours. What is it? Would that do the rosé as well? Red sky at night, sailor's delight, isn't it? So
I don't know. A lot of this I'm just following my curiosity, because I remember my friend Mark Palmer was the marketing director at Green and Blacks, and they did this big campaign, which is kind of interesting. I think they sponsored Valentine's Day, and I may be wrong here, but they sponsored the nighttime. They sponsored that nighttime. They wanted that sort of dark colour and association with the brand, because it had that sort of premiumization, you know.
Like Black Magic.
Black Magic, yeah. But then, that's so interesting. I hadn't thought of it like that, but that owning that dark moment, then actually, I suppose you look at it now, I suppose Green and Black's 2.0 is Tony's Chocolonely, and if you look at the category of chocolate before they rocked up, it was blacks and golds and deep, rich colours. Tony's Chocolonely comes in, it's like a fairground of different colours, and it's just like, interesting. How important, if you're looking at your brand on shelf, how far back should you be analysing that? Do you think about that?
Yes, or these days, in fact, as more and more shopping goes online, doesn't matter what it looks like on shelf anymore, but rather you should be thinking about how it appears on the typical screen, which means then it's going to be very small, which means then maybe you can't see the text, which means some of the visual effects won't work. So should you be designing for that as the optimum appearance there, which then might be, I don't know, if you look at some of the biggest platforms, can you optimize the color contrast so your product look stands out against the backdrop of the shopping site? Things like that. And in store, I guess people still do look a bit at that. But in terms of distance, maybe you're not really given much. I mean, there's as much the height thing on the shelf, and the distance. I mean, before it closed our supermarket here, that the aisles are so narrow you can't get any distance. You're kind of forced.
Sure. Yeah, no, I was sort of thinking about, like, if I'm comparing walking through the savannas versus walking through the supermarket aisle, it's like our eyes are triggered to see these things, and scan the savannas for that, fresh fruit. It's probably why off-shelf and builds and secondary display units do so well, because if you're visuals, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just kind of chatting bollocks basically, but would you say it's because it's such a big thing in our eyes when we see like a stack of, say, Cadbury's Dairy Milk chocolate? Is it shortcutting our brains from an evolutionary perspective to be like, that's food, that's good, go there? Or is it just, how does that work?
So if you took the evolutionary perspective, then you'd say there's more of our visual systems kind of given over to processing the lower half of the visual field, because that's where all the action happens, rather than the upper half is just sky.
Okay.
So we have more of our processing resources devoted down there.
Interesting.
Are more devoted out into the periphery, so scanning along the horizon, I guess, rather than your feet. And that we find that normally people associate dark things with low locations, low pitch, bright things, light in colour things to be high in space, smaller. So we've done some sort of shelf layout stuff showing that if you put the light things higher up, then that's sort of where your brain expects it to be. But if you put a light in colour product down at the bottom and a dark thing on the top, that's going to back to front. The dark colours are heavy and they should be lower. The light ones are lighter and should be higher. And so you can play with these kind of almost synesthetic correspondences there. And I presume one could do more clever things about not thinking about just the individual front of an individual package or product, but I think how they would appear when arranged in some sort of matrix on the shelf. But maybe people don't have enough control over that to sort of play games about visual illusions, things that only appear when you have a configuration of packs. Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, how almost the outer packs stack together. Interesting. What other, again, say we're taking evolution psychology as kind of the foundation, and we're building principles of marketing on top. What, I mean, doesn't necessarily have to be about marketing in general. What are some of the other principles that are really important for marketeers to understand from evolution? I
mean, a lot of it's just so stories, so it's very hard to prove whether these things are true or not. One of my favourite ones is we do a lot of work on sonic seasoning, which is kind of matching music to tastes and flavours. So in the lab, we get people in and we give them something bitter to taste or sweet, sour or salty, and then put them in front of a virtual keyboard, and they pick the instrument and the music and the timbre and the pitch and the loudness and the roughness and the ambitus and everything else. Feels a bit strange, but you just say, just do it, and they think they're just guessing, kind of, but when you get 20 people together, you'll find that the majority of people will pick a high-pitched sound for sweet and a low-pitched sound for bitter, say. So what's that going to do with evolution? Well, if you look across humans, rats and chimpanzees, we're all born sticking our tongues out and up for sweetness, because we need the calories for growth.
Wow.
We're all born sticking our tongues out and down for bitter tasting foods, because that's a sign that it may be poisonous. So across species, we're all born doing that stereotypical orofacial gestures.
Wait, so you're either born with your tongue up or down?
Or if you'll understand why I was never allowed near my my nieces without an adult present. So,
Yeah.
But if you stick a sweet taste on the tongue of a newborn across the species, they'll all stick their tongue out to
Oh, wow.
try and ingest what they need.
Yeah.
But bleh, for bitter tastes. And if you think about the kind of gurgles babies of those different species would make with their tongue, it's kind of a difference in pitch.
Yeah.
And this is another statistic of the world, just like the ripening of fruit, going from green and sour and no energy to redder and riper and sweeter. There's this association between sort of the sound qualities for sweet tastes and for bitter. And I think in our lab studies, we just pick that up. Our brains internalize all the statistics we can between shapes and colours and tastes, and then some of those statistics will be learned from the marketplace these days. That's where we do most of our foraging rather than the savannah.
So check the audio. Yeah, keep going.
This kind of sweet, high pitch, bitter, low pitch is kind of a useless statistic. Doesn't help us, but our brain just can't tell. It just picks up any statistics.
Yeah.
Some are useful, like the fruit. The pitch and taste is kind of useless. But nevertheless, our brain internalizes it, and then we can sort of play it back in marketing to think about, if you've got your ice cream store, then if you play higher pitch tinkling music, that's going to go with sweetness. And so, then it bias people's choice of things, and it apparently does. Maybe biases where they look. If you play whatever sort of higher pitch music, then people will be more likely to look upwards. Low pitch music, and they'll look down as well, and hence you can sort of bias gaze, bias food choices or flavour.
So we're talking, was it about the McDonald's katsu burger?
Yep.
In the pink packaging. Why did that fail?
What
was actually the context for that first? Yeah.
So chicken katsu, very sort of popular in Japan primarily. Made as an offering to customers elsewhere in the world for McDonald's. They thought, well, it's chicken, so put it in pink box, bright pink. Then it just didn't sell as it should have done, given how popular chicken katsu is elsewhere. I think the idea is that that pink colour looks like raw chicken. And so you're kind of cueing all the wrong associations. It may stand out, but if it cues the wrong things of an uncooked chicken, then that's not what I want to eat. And hence people are...
So what did you do to change it? Or did you?
Just choose a different colour.
What colour did you go with?
I don't know.
You didn't choose?
No.
Okay, interesting.
And of course, that pink colour could be perfect for other products, for something sweet. It'd work very well.
Yeah.
But in a different context, in a different sort of packaging form or image mould, then that pink would mean something different.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's this. I went to University of Manchester, and there was this place called Archie's Fried Chicken, and they sold milkshakes, right? And the branding was this like fluorescent, almost like Barbie-ish pink. And I don't know. Now you're sort of detailing it to me. I just thought there was just something revolting about eating. I just thought the burger in this bright pink fluorescent shop was repugnant. But for the milkshake, I was like, amazing. Yeah. So I got milkshakes from there, but I never got the burgers from there because interesting. So how important is the red in the KFC for chicken burgers?
Don't know. In that case, I suppose you might say, well, red ought to be bad for, doesn't, the red of McDonald's, then doesn't that cue blood of, it doesn't somehow. We haven't heard any problems with that.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying that why is it a good thing for KFC, the red? Is it like, does it...
It's their brand colour general, isn't it?
Yeah. Interesting.
It's a sort of consistent appearance or cues across packaging or product formats.
Yeah. Interesting. What I wanted to ask you about is and I think McDonald's do a great job of this, is what is happening to us when we read, so I think onomatopoeia and alliteration in branding or messaging. I don't know what it does. I think there's a thing called the Keats heuristic, which Keats was the poet, and it's when we see these things, it makes us has this kind of effect on us. I'd love to really dive into that with you, Charles. So like when you see like, I think McDonald's have a thing which is for their breakfast muffin, it's 7:45 like as in like kind of a what's happening in our brains when we see that kind of stuff?
I suppose we're probably internally sounding out that, sort of speaking in our head, the things that we read. Yeah. Kind of, well, not everyone, but many people have that sort of voice in their head, so they sort of hear the sounds that are written, and it may be, there's sort of whatever the social psychology trick. This one might still be valid. I'm not sure. Putting like a pen in your mouth, and then you smile, and if you smile, then you're happier.
Wow. Okay.
Or the other one that doesn't replicate, or maybe it does, or who knows? There's sort of the power pose, stand like Superwoman, and you'll be more forceful. So if your body adopts the posture, then you kind of come to believe it and becomes true, sort of self-fulfilling in a way. So if you smile, whether or not you're happy, you'll feel a little bit happier. So I guess maybe if you hear inside your head going, maybe then that is what you normally do in response to something you like. Yeah. And so maybe it sort of carries over. In a way, we've just got a project funded at the moment, just starting on sort of stomach gurgles. To see whether they're contagious or not between people. Yeah. Sort of similar way, so, people, if somebody yawns, that's contagious. Other people will yawn. No one knows quite why, but yawning is contagious, so we want to see whether stomach gurgles. So we'll have people in the lab, we'll play some of these stomach gurgling sounds and see whether that leads them to their stomachs start gurgling, and or whether they start feeling hungrier. Yeah. Because of this other.
Wow, I hadn't even thought of that. In terms of like tribes, again in the savannah, I feel like the best brands, I think Seth Godin writes a book, the Genius Marketeer, called Tribes. How do you think brands should think about that? And again, for our desires to be mimetic human sort of creatures and stuff like that.
Well, I don't think much about it really.
Yeah.
No, it's kind of always easier to, I guess, study the individual when people come together. Then things get complicated. Yes. To study. So I don't never really think about groups or tribes. Are always about maybe groups of individuals, but as individuals. Yeah. And I guess maybe the thing to think about would be how much of this sort of imitation there is, and the sort of the influencers, whether they set the behaviour for the group, but this group or tribe or whatever you call it is not physically together, but sort of distributed digitally. Yeah. And maybe, increasingly, your tribe may actually not be made up of real people. Maybe it's avatars. Yeah. And already I'm seeing some of my colleagues doing stuff on sort of creating groups of virtual online friends.
Wow.
Through AI and
that's mad. Yeah, no, it's interesting because I think like Seth's point is our desire for his sort of thesis on marketing is any decision we make is either is based on three sort of principles: either to gain status, to gain connection or affiliation, i.e., people drinking the Aperol Spritz, you want connection. Especially in a high-end cocktail bar, you want the status. But it's also the freedom of fear. Like, if again, back to the savannas, if you're out of your tribe, you're basically fucked because a lion could come and eat you, sort of thing. So yeah, it's interesting. But I think what you're saying about these sort of signals of the brand on the supermarket, they probably do link together as these sort of beacons. These, like, even if you look at the Golden Arches, like it's like a totemic thing, isn't it? There's one in Wandsworth where I drive round. It's like there's something around that,
Supposedly, was it Louis Cheskin, the Madison Avenue's marketing magician, saying 2 golden breasts, don't get rid of that. Freudian.
Really?
Yeah.
What are some other logos? Because didn't you do something with the 7-Up? Like, talk to me. Go into sort of what was the 7-Up brief and what?
No, so that's another one of Louis Cheskin's. Like the
Oh, is that okay? Sorry, yeah. Sorry.
examples, and that one is sort of interesting both because we find if we ask people to pick a shape for a sweet taste or pick a shape for a bitter taste, then people will pick a round shapes for sweetness. People will pick an angular shape for bitter, salty, sour tasting foods.
Sorry, angular like
Star.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
On a round shape like a cloud or a circle for sweet tastes, very robustly. And if we do, when I get some like Nestlé executives, all it takes is 10 of them and give them some milk chocolate, some dark chocolate, sweeter or more bitter, and give them a scale with like we call it Bouba or Kiki, but a round shape or an angular shape, and just say, describe the taste of that chocolate on this scale. And everyone will put the sweeter milk chocolate near the round shape and the angular shape. The more bitter the chocolate, the more angular the shape you pick. If it's sour taste, it's angular, but it's also asymmetric. Whereas,
are those set in stone rules, or can clever brands like fuck with people's heads? Essentially,
they could do. So I think if you know these associations, and I think probably Louis Cheskin intuitively picked some of them up. Maybe didn't know why they existed or how they extended, but he put this red. You know, what's a red circle doing in the middle of the 7-Up logo? Mm-hmm. Doesn't have to be there, isn't it? But red is the colour of sweetness. Circle is the colour of sweetness, so it's kind of cueing sweetness.
Wow.
My other favourite one would be San Pellegrino or Heineken, or pretty much any beer brand will have an angular logo. Newcastle Brown, one of the first ones. Very often they've got the story. So was it Heineken? This star is a prize-winning star when we won a beer competition in 1880 or 1900 or something. San Pellegrino, they just don't say. But on the top of a San Pellegrino bottle of sparkling water, there's a star. There's a big star on the front label. There are a few more stars on the back. They're not there on Aquapana, their still water brand, only on the sparkling.
And what's what? Oh, yeah,
and we find in our lab studies, if we give people still water and sparkling water, you'll always pick a star for carbonated water.
Interesting.
And if it's bitter and carbonated like a beer, then all the more reason to have angularity as part of your logo, as Heineken does, as Newcastle Brown Ale does, as Red Stripe does, and so on. Estrella, or even call your brand Star in Spanish with the star.
Yeah.
And it's all cueing, I think, the taste. So normally you'd think if you mix things up, if you have Star on a still water brand, that's going to probably confuse the consumer. And sometimes we do we just go and pick up based on colour or form from the shelf. Yeah. There are so many things we move. Is it 1,000 or 10,000 products we might see on the typical walk through a supermarket? So we can't really process them all. So a lot of it's done sort of heuristically just by colour. And back in the day, was it Walker's sort of played the trick in 1984, I think it was. They had, I was getting the wrong way around, they had salt and vinegar crisps. Mm-hmm. And then were the first to introduce cheese and onion, new flavour. But how do you get consumers to try the new flavour? Well, they reversed the colours. So
cheese and onion is blue, salt and vinegar is green.
For Walker's, but it's the opposite for most brands in the marketplace.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so they deliberately mixed up the colour messaging, switched it whichever way it is.
Yeah.
So that consumers would go for their favourite crisp, just pick the colour, get home and find they've got, I didn't mean to get the cheese and onion. Yeah. But you've got that first exposure and hopefully it's a nice flavour. And Walkers can get away with it because they're sort of cheeky brand, that's okay. Other serious brands in other categories, much harder, and you're more likely to disappoint, I think, people. One of the other way to think about it is, again, Louis Cheskin. He did 1940s, 50s. He was working with Fleischmann's Gin, I think it was, in the States. And he says he's brought in to try and increase sales of their gin. Gin's mostly drunk by the husband of the day, but it turned out that it was the housewife who tended to buy it. And so what he recommended is sort of rounding off the label on the front, rather than having a rectangular shape, rounding off the label and lo and behold, increased sales because that's more appealing to women. He thought, and the same thing might be for, I think there's something going on, isn't it, with Ford cars, Fiesta, car, Granada, old cars, and a lot of them end with an A.
Yeah.
They end with sort of a rounded sound.
Yeah.
And is that because, again, that might be more appealing to women who might make the decisions?
Interesting.
And maybe that's sort of a soft and a more caring sound rather than a very forceful, strong letter or speech sound to look at or listen to.
It's like almost just. I think the point there is about the difference between the actual shopper, say the wife, and the consumer, the husband at home. Say you were to start a brand, or a lot of people listening to this have got brands who are trying to disrupt categories. And I think there's this blandemic of brands in the sense you go and look at a category. If you look at your category, you become your category, like it ultimately. And I feel, especially we kind of saw this with protein bars. A lot of them just ended up being other versions of Grenade that was sort of the category leader. You're probably seeing it in snacking, where all snacking brands, or challenger snacking brands specifically, look pretty much the same. How would you, if you wanted to disrupt a category, what are some of the, again, almost like key stage 2 maths versions of it, right? If people can't afford to come to the University of Oxford, like, what are some of the ways they could do that?
Successfully. So, I mean, I guess whatever the category, there will be a colour codes. For the crisps, it's the blue or it's called green for cheese and onion, whichever way it is. For milk, then it's, what is it, blue for no fat, red for semi, green for full. Or,
yeah.
So there's another colour, same colours, but they have different meaning. So one way is to disrupt there, because that will then stand out on the shelf. One of the things I often think about is kind of image molds, sort of a notion from the 70s or 80s, early psychology of packaging research. And they say, take something like maybe the best packages, their shape will match the taste or flavour. So sweet things should be in round, angular things for bitter, and if not the shape of the package, but in the shape of the label, or the shape of the typeface. And there are some things like a wishbone salad dressing.
Wishbone?
Yeah, old 70s. So if you think about what does salad dressing bottle look like in a silhouette?
Yeah.
It's kind of
Yeah.
So this is kind of an image mold. That shape, if I show you the silhouette, you'll think salad dressing, but as it happens, because Wishbone came out with it, and then everyone else copies that.
Yeah. So if you were trying to do a salad dressing, would you put it in something like the shape of the Shard or something like that?
So then, or say if it's olive oil, premium olive oil, then if you put it in what looks like a perfume bottle, as some have done, you sort of get all the associations, which is of quality and expensive, and just a few drops of this for free, because somebody else has established that image mold, that shape, form means X, and so if you when you're thinking about how to package things, then think it could be the Covent Garden Soup Company. Don't sell your soup in a can, put it in a Tetra Pak and put it in the fridge, and it seems like it's fresh, and you get all the associations of that sort of Tetra Pak in the fridge already be established by somebody else, and you can just ride on them. So how could you innovate by picking up somebody else's hard work? By taking their image mold or using it, and that will sort of communicate almost subliminally with the consumer. Could it be something about where you put things? If you have control over, I don't know what would be a good example, but things that could be in confectionery, or they could be in health foods, or they could be somewhere else. And
Grenade, Al's been on the podcast. You know Grenade, the protein bars. They're like a massive brand. They sold to Mondelez. But his whole thing was we're absolutely buggered if you put us. This was like 5-10 years ago. If you put us in the like health and wellness, sort of functional category, because no one walks down there. Their whole genius move was just basically putting Grenade, which has got 25 grams of protein, next to Cadbury's Dairy Milk, next to Twix, and that just, even by just moving it where you are in store, it stands out. Yeah, interesting.
Maybe sometimes it's hard to demand or dictate where your product will appear, but maybe there's some wiggle room for if you're of a certain size. Yeah, I mean, the challenge is how do you sort of stand out without then confusing people?
Yes.
It's like with the change, you can change the colour, you will stand out, you'll get a first purchase, but have you lost it after that? So what sort of changes or things you use differently that will make you stand out but won't set the wrong expectations? And I don't know for the... I think when I see these olive oils in perfume bottles, on the one hand, I think that works because that says, this is expensive, premium, a drop's worth a lot. But on the other hand, I don't want to eat perfume.
Yeah.
It also kind of, to me, it's sort of sending mixed messages in that case.
Isn't it? There's a thing called the Maya principle, which is like the most acceptable yet alternative, which is Rory's told me about this, which is like be weird but not too weird, because if you're too weird, i.e. perfume out of a bottle, you don't want to be drinking that. So it's that fine dance between standing out but not being too weird that you piss people off and they don't come back for that second purchase. Interesting. What's been some of the hardest briefs you've had to work on for brands?
Probably one recent one. It was a recency effect as much as anything, but was got me thinking. There's a lot of interest in sort of the world of perfumes, fragrance, and how can we convey that online for all the online shopping?
Yeah.
Well, we can't because it can only do visual, maybe some sound, but you can't smell what you see online. So interesting, trying to engage the other senses to evoke what a perfume is like, and that's got us into some of this sort of sonic seasoning again, but trying to design music that will match perfumes. And we know we can make music to bring out the sweetness of chocolate or the bitterness, high pitch or low pitch music. We know we can change the taste of wine and whiskey and whatever else. So food and drinks, it's relatively easy now to create or find soundscapes, music that will match the taste and or accentuate desirable qualities. But when you try and apply that then to perfume, sounds simple because it's 75 to 95% of what you think you're tasting, you're really smelling. So food is really like mostly fragrance, aroma. Perfume is just sort of 100% aroma. I thought this will be easy. And so it's with a perfume company. It had 4 perfumes, 3 for women, 1 for men, set in French evening or Parisian night or something like that. And there we can speak to the sort of perfume makers for the brand and figure out exactly what are the key notes, which are the key floral notes and base notes and so on. But then it actually becomes really hard to come up with a good solution, in part because all perfumes are kind of equally intense. All perfumes kind of have a base note, a top note, a middle note. So anyway, there's less variation. They're all pleasant. So how can you differentiate between them musically? It's much harder. Whereas for foods, maybe some are spicy, some are astringent, some are come and gone, others linger in your mouth for a long time. There's a lot more kind of range, I think, in flavours than there is in perfumes. That probably makes it hard. And then to think about how we've always been sort of designing note by note. So we'll speak to the master blender and he says, this whiskey starts with, I don't know, caramel, candied apple, then it's got some spicy notes in the middle, and then it'll end with sort of a textured finish. And say, okay, we can find music for the candied apple at the beginning, the sort of sweeter notes, the spicier notes, and for the textured finish.
Yeah.
These are the instruments we want. This is how this will be played. And that's great. But when it comes to the sort of perfume, all of these different things sort of all merge together into one thing. And hence this sort of note by note creation, I think, got to think it maybe doesn't work so well. So yeah, it became sort of we sort of reasonably succeeded. I think we did create some soundscapes and people could discriminate reasonably well. But I felt that's actually a much harder problem than I'd realised.
Yeah.
So
you think the soundscape, the sonic branding is easier with food than it is with perfume?
yes.
Okay, interesting.
Or at least to try and convey the taste or flavour experience is easier.
So what brands get the sonic branding is basically is audio for your brands.
Yes.
What brands do that really well?
I guess you have to be the ones that where you hear their sonic mnemonic or sonic logo, and immediately So people would talk about Intel inside. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And suddenly, as a good example, maybe Nokia. I don't have a phone, so whatever that is.
Yeah.
Did it well. Others, like British Airways, did it very badly because they had the pearl fishers, la 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 la, for that, and then they gave it up and used something else. Mm-hmm. So everyone knew British Airways was that, and then they gave it up. Some of the car companies are sort of much touted for not just creating having a system where you can adapt some kind of core structure of sound, but then you can play it with different instruments depending where in the world this advert's going to be shown.
Yeah.
And you can vary its sort of length depending whether it's just a 3 or 4 second sonic logo, or is it a piece that's going to maintain throughout a 3-minute ad. Mm-hmm. So there's kind of flexibility to modify things.
Yeah, it's interesting how I think that there's a thing going around on social media, which is the Jess Glynn song with the Jet 2 Holidays. And a lot of people are just sort of rinsing and repeating it, but it has that immediately, that's because they use it on the adverts. And it has that, it's synonymous with that song. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I sort of picking up what you're saying. It's like as soon as you hear that, as soon as I hear that song, I think of Jet 2 Holidays. Mad. So you don't have a phone. How does that help you with your creative process or thinking time? Like, how do you spend your time thinking? Like, so I know, Charles Darwin had this walk he'd do every single day to kind of, again, to get his sensory, almost overload himself with all his senses, and then would go and do creative work. Mm-hmm. You don't have a phone. How do you think about things?
Well, I just do, because you don't have anything to distract you.
Yeah.
I think. Probably always have a pen and paper. I guess I would go for 3 months a year to the place behind here, 3 or 4 months, and that's in the garden, and do feel that sort of, you think differently and get lots of the nature effect from the sounds.
So for listeners, that's in Colombia.
Yeah. Cloud forest. I may not leave the front gates for a few months at a time. And that is sort of immersed in nature and the sights, the sounds, the smells, the tastes, the textures. And that just clear your mind and make you think differently than I do when I'm here in Oxford and I've got all my filing cabinets with all my papers. It's a bit freer, but normally just, I think I'm very much of the opinion that kind of the medium, I still do make comments on paper manuscripts to my students, and they say, oh, can't you just type them in or something? This is really, really awkward. And, but I do think you just think differently. Not only, sometimes I'll work in here, sometimes I'll work there, sometimes I'll work there. I think the place where you choose to work makes you think differently. And my wife says, why are you sitting here?
I really want to talk about this. So so obviously when I started this, I used to work from home a lot, and I get this almost like, I've talked to a lot of people who work from home. It's almost this idea rot. It's like you almost get like a kind of malaise and depression where you're like, for that, it could be an afternoon, and you're just like, ugh. And I don't know what it is. I'd love to speak to you about this. As soon as I go to a cafe, mood changes. As soon as I go and work from the gym, go to a house, if I mix up where I work, my happiness baseline is way higher, and my creativity is way higher. Why?
So it might be in some sort of sense hacking book for people who are working at home during COVID. None of us can smell our own home. Mm-hmm. Everyone else's home smells a bit funny. Probably here smells a bit funny to you, but I can't smell anything at all. Maybe you smell your own home when you come back from a long holiday.
Yeah.
After 3 months over in Colombia, and I come back here.
Yeah.
So everyone's home smells. Everyone's home office has this odour, but we don't detect it. And why that matters, and why changing it helps is that if we've had a stressful meeting or just got bogged down or idea rot, then that sort of negative feeling will be associated with the smell. In just the same way, when you go to the dentist and you smell the cloves, the eugenol, you get stressed immediately.
Yeah.
You weren't born that way, but you just learnt when I smell that smell, what it means is pain. So my sort of suggestion for the dentist is, every 6 months you should change the smell. Doesn't matter what the smell is, but then you won't trigger all those negative associations for your customers.
Yeah.
People will try this now. We're scenting the dentist surgery orange flavour and smell, and that reduces stress levels.
Yeah.
You do the same thing at hospitals. And I think for the home, then if you had a stressful meeting or you just got bogged down and can't, then your state is probably partly being triggered by the smell.
Wow.
And so if you have to stay at home, I was just saying, get a fresh smell, spray some different aroma, and that'll be like an olfactory reset. Or go somewhere else, go to the coffee shop and smell the coffee. Mm-hmm. Might be an alerting, arousing smell in and of itself. But that's a change of environment or change of format. So from computer to paper for me, from one space to another, is how you keep things.
I think analog to digital is really interesting. One of the founder of Brewdog, the beer brand, has an analog desk and a digital desk, and he'll do his analog work will be obviously just pens and papers, ideas, thinking, and then switches to a completely different desk. What's going on with the sounds? So when I'm in a coffee shop, and for some perplexing reason, I can do amazing work on a train. Why? What's going on there with the sound specifically? I feel like it just switches.
So
my left brain off, basically.
I used to love. Was it coming back from Australia, and I used to travel there a lot, and that's like 24 hours. And you get a couple of papers written, one on Singapore and the other one, because you're stuck, you can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And this was before they had internet on things, so you're kind of stuck there in your seat, and you've got to make that time pass. And the best way for me is to distract and write something. Mm-hmm. That was perfect. Couldn't find anywhere else because you'd always think, well, no, I'll make myself a cup of coffee, or I'll go and check the news feed, or do something else, make the bed, or there's always I think most of us probably find it very easy to distract ourselves with something else. Mm-hmm. And some of these situations will be where you're sort of forced to be in a fixed location, like with the trains and planes, coffee shops. It could be the smell of coffee. It's probably what may alert you. And there's research that alerting smells, be it peppermint, probably coffee, can have that sort of positive impact.
Interesting.
And whether it's something, if you see other people there, does that help too? You see other people in their coffees, as we call it these days, kind of coffee in office.
Coffees, I love that. Yeah.
And I can see them down the street here. We've got, I don't know how many coffee shops, 10 of them from nowhere, full of students and sort of maybe sort of feed off each other in some sense. And there's that kind of something like whatever the group activity you get in, is it the cinemas? One of the fun studies I read recently, sometimes we watch films at home, but it's not quite the same as watching them as a cinema.
It's like comedy is always funnier when you're with people.
Yeah. And so people have been analysing the smell of cinemas, taking the extractor fan from a cinema and just analysing it chemically to see what, and they can see these sort of changes in the olfactory signature from all those people in the cinema, depending on the kind of movie they're watching. And that sort of olfactory triggering maybe part of what makes being together in a group makes the film more enjoyable. Is there something of that in
there's definitely what I miss about the cinema, not that I ever went often, but was I don't know, something would happen to you palpably when you walked in, you'd smell the popcorn. Again, I'm just asking you a lot of curious questions here, but you don't get that on Netflix.
Nope.
You're missing that vital element. So you read correctly, you grew up like parents were at Fairground or something. Talk to me about that. Well, what were if you could sum up your childhood in distinct sounds or colours that sort of viscerally come to you now, what would they be?
So it'd be my grandfather's dark green wagon. That's Williams green that you'd see. It would be the smell of Derv diesel engine, whatever it stands for, but it's kind of war period cheap white diesel, I think.
Yeah.
It was used to power all the machines and the wagons. And so sort of there's no running water, so only had a bath once a year, so some sort of bodily odours. And then I actually just wrote a paper about this.
You only had a bath once a year?
Oh, he did, my grandfather.
Yeah.
So by the time I was born, my parents had moved off when they got married. So we go back to see my uncles and aunts and grandparents.
Yeah. And where was this? This was in
Bradford, Bowling and
yep.
Manningham Park. And then there's sort of the outside toilet. And this little, so those sort of horrible smells and dark and no lighting and so you'd always wait till you got home to relieve yourself. And then I guess of the sort of fairground itself of all the dirt and dogs and lights and a very sort of multi-sensory experience. So in a way I would say there's kind of the life on the fairground in the winter months when there are no fairs, which where I'd see my grandfather, and then kind of when the show comes to town, as it does here in the first Monday and Tuesday after the first Sunday in September every year, and then it's sort of a full multi-sensory overload. And I want to say, all these people who are doing a sort of virtual reality and the metaverse, and isn't it immersive? I think no, it's not really. Mostly, but on a fairground ride, that is kind of the ultimate immersive. When you're on the waltzers or the dodgems, you just cannot think about anything else. You think you're about to die. Yeah, and that is I think, the ultimate in the moment, immersed.
Yeah.
Experience.
I find that with go-karting as well for some weird reason. I don't know what it is. I think again it's a bit like a sensory orgy, And like I've been go-karting very few times, but you come off it and you're not thinking about anything else. My friend just got a motorbike. He says the same thing. Because you want headspace, go and get a motorbike. Yep. So talk to me more about the fairground. So where were you travelling around with your parents, or how?
My parents settled down after they got married to give their children a better chance in life. Yeah. So we'd go and see my uncles and aunts stayed on for longer than my grandparents.
They were still doing the fairgrounds.
Yep.
Wow.
I should have been writing a piece actually on sort of the liminal space that is the fairground for some magazine. And
what's the liminal space?
Liminal is just like somewhere that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
If you go on Wikipedia, it says liminal spaces like empty office blocks and kind of places where there should be people but there's nobody. But I think the fairground's another liminal space where it's kind of dangerous, but you can go there occasionally. It comes one night and disappeared the next day.
When did they start these fairgrounds?
12th century, 13th century.
Wow.
Mostly, it sort of changed their roles over the centuries. Initially, it was just sort of trade and maybe hiring fairs. And came like my great-great-grandfather introduced moving pictures and ghost shows. Cinema.
Oh, wow.
In 1890s. And ghost shows and sort of illusions shows. Dr. Pepper's Ghost and the Phantasmagoria. Kind of experiences, and then in the sort of 20th century, then you get increasing traction engines and electricity, and then steam-powered rides. So you get things that move, and the waltzers and the dodgems and the cakewalks and the gallopers and the whatever else.
Well, how did that? Seeing all again the multi-sensory overload as a kid with these fairgrounds, like what really pulled you into this? What pulled your curiosity into this space?
In part, I was going to a conference a few years ago on proprioceptive art. What is proprioceptive art by some philosophers in Germany? And
when you say proprioceptive,
like bodily, if you're feeling your artists who make you feel your body.
Yes.
So there's I forget the guy's name, but he has like a massive net suspended near the roof of the building.
Yeah.
And you climb over it like a spider's web, and you can see the ground hundreds of meters, tens of meters down, and all separating you is this kind of wire. So then you're very aware of your body. Mm-hmm. Or others who where the art piece is where you sort of fall into something. Like a big cushion. Brazilian artist does that. So it's artists who make you feel your body in a way.
Yeah.
Proprioception is a sense of where your body is. When I went to that conference, I just got to think, well, no, in fact, the Fairground is a much better place for proprioceptive, making you feel about your body in different ways, and sort of the immersive thing. And I just wanted to know. We've got some posters from the 1890s, sort of the great Randall Williams with his Phantasmagoria.
What's that?
Exactly. So it becomes a thing. Well, I wonder what I sort of read it as this sort of newspaper advert and poster and things, and Dr. Pepper's Ghost, and sort of parked it and think, no idea what that is. But then sort of get curious about, well, what was he actually doing? And these were sort of early ghost shows with, I think maybe a bit like, been repopularized these days, maybe with the ABBA thing, a bit where you have an actor under the stage, and then a sort of a semi-silvered or sort of glass, 45 degrees, and actors on the stage. So the audience are looking at the actors on the stage, but you can also project with bright lights, ghosts to appear and interact with the real actors.
Yeah.
That was Dr. Pepper's Ghost, initially at the Royal Institution in London, and then I think my great-grandfather sort of took the idea and put it on the Fairground as entertainment. And the Phantasmagoria comes from sort of Paris crypts in 1700s, where they'd have smoke and lantern shows.
Yeah.
And sort of project ghosts. And he was doing that in Fairground tents. So all sort of ghostly apparitions, illusions, for up to 1,000 people. And that then morphs into kind of these ghosts that are on screens, which is cinema. I say he was the first one. He took I think Queen Victoria's Golden Jubilee or something, or Silver Jubilee in 1896 or 95. I didn't film it. It was filmed in London with all processions, and then the film came up to Manchester, in fact, and he showed it in the Manchester or Liverpool, and he showed it in the.
So that sort of really pulled you into this space.
Yeah, and sort of reading this history, then it sort of resonates both as what I spend a lot of my time doing is illusions of different sorts, and here he was doing illusions. Yes. We have rubber hand illusions. We have butcher's tongue illusions. We have
butcher's tongue illusions
where we get you to stick your tongue out and put your head in this sort of box with some mirrors, and when you look down, it looks like you can see your tongue, which is stuck out, but in fact, it's a butcher's tongue that's over there instead.
Oh wow!
And then we can sort of drop lemon juice on the butcher's tongue and stroke it, and you think that's your tongue. Yeah. It's not. There's kind of a version of the rubber hand illusion. So we do lots of these illusions too. So there's some sort of synergy there of that. And also, he was, I guess, going to the Royal Polytechnic Institute on Regent Street in London in the 1890s, 1880s, where there was the first kind of crossover between science and entertainment. So the Royal Polytechnic Institute was there to sort of interest the public in science and sort of popularise it, on planets and all sorts, electricity and these illusions. My great-grandfather then sort of took that sort of the scientific insight and turned it into a entertainment experience. Wow. And nowadays, with the idea of sort of popularisation of science and trying to get sort of public engagement in science, it's sort of happening again in a way. And then through to these rides with multi-sensory, the most immersive experiences. So if you're interested in VR, as I am, and trying to create immersive experiences for brands, then what other tricks might you find from the Fairground?
What are some of those? Keeping that in your back pocket for now. I love that, Charles.
Yeah, and then it goes on to the fair when it comes here now. It's got churros and stuff, which I'm sure weren't around long ago. But it's got there's lots of sort of sounds and the smells of all the food and all these sort of family foods and toffee apples and pomegranates and candy floss and brandy snaps and coconuts. All these sort of Fairground foods that have sort of disappeared, and rock, even sort of Fairground rock was before seaside rock. So some of our foods are kind of go back to that time. And that maybe what could people learn when I was researching these sort of proprioceptive pleasures, all these fairground rides that move you. There's sort of books and on designing roller coasters, and when one of them, it's the guy's sort of famous for it. He says you don't need to be an engineer to design a good roller coaster. You need to be a psychologist.
Okay, unpack that more.
Yeah, because well, it helps if you're an engineer.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of psychology and about sort of the sound of the thing, and this, what do they call it? Like the dog ratchet or something when the sort of seats go up the incline. Then it says kind of clack 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 clack.
Yeah.
And that's really important because that builds up your anticipation and your sort of fear, as does hearing the screams of those on the rides. And when I was talking about this with my brother and father last night, in fact, remembering sort of, I think it was, they used to go to Manchester decades ago, and there was like a wooden roller coaster, and again, it's that sort of sound of it, the creaking. It was what made it really, really scary, and they can remember it, decades later. But this creaking of wood, so it's kind of sort of psychological fear through the on the kind of ghost trains when you sort of pulled around, and they would have these danglers, which are like bits of string, which could be a ghost, and as you're pulled around, then it sort of brush against your face. You go, and you have to be taken past it, because if you're sort of static, then you just get really annoyed and sort of yank it off, because it happens so quickly. You can't, and so these sort of sensory cues that you might not think about. You might think, well, all we need to know about for designing a roller coaster is how high, how big an incline. But no, you can sort of ramp up through the other senses.
Yeah. Utterly fascinating. I love to explore what we've just talked about, and also cinema, and what are some of the lessons or principles restaurants? You work with some of the best restaurants in the world. Work with Heston, obviously know Ashley very well, our mutual friend. What are some of the lessons restaurants can learn from cinema?
So that is kind of my current review that's under review at the moment on
really?
that. So, well, it's sort of morphed into that.
Well, so that's completely random. Yeah. Fucking hell, that's mad.
No, so I think a lot of the time.
So sorry, when you say under review, you're basically writing a paper on
Yeah,
this.
I've written paper and no one wants to publish it, so we're battling with the reviewers to see.
Okay.
Which is all about Counterpoint.
Counterpoint,
which is kind of a musical notion when you have different. I'm not a musician, but you have different sort of parts, and they're doing the opposite thing.
Okay.
Music.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Initially, it's just that. You have one group of singers doing blah blah blah, and the other ones are doing something the opposite or something different. So they're kind of one's in the counterpoint to the other. And then it turns out that that's also used in film. So I've just been reviewing kind of the hearing and vision in film over going back, of course, to the very earliest silent films, and then from there forward. I'm very often thinking about, well, how do filmmakers use sound to augment the visual action? And then from there, thinking, well, is that very similar to how a chef might use music to augment a dining experience? And we've done lots of stuff. We get it matching music to dishes for meals, and very often you sort of find music that matches the taste experience or the journey, so it's in perfect alignment, hopefully. Or you might music to elevate the mood or to darken the mood. Again, that's used in film. But then you start seeing from the 30s or 40s this idea of counterpoint appearing in cinemas, which is where you might have a really nasty scene, but with happy music. So think of Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
And whatever the violent rape scene and lots of malinky bit of violence, and some of that is played alongside happy music. It's like that's going to counterpoint. It's not. It's the opposite.
It's interesting. There's a restaurant. I always say it's like if Quentin Tarantino was to open a restaurant. For me, and I'd love to explore who that would be for you. For me, it's a place called, formerly known as Black Axe Mangal in Islington. Highbury Corner, Islington, and he worked for St John. I don't know the restaurant St John, and he was the head chef there. And you walk in, and they've got these they look like these sort of monsters on the wall. It's very dark and black. There's not even a sign on the outside. And upstairs, it's either blasting hip hop. It's this really dark space with this big oven, really intimate, blasting hip hop or blasting death metal, right? And you're just eating this really delicious food, but it's just like kind of a bit of a weird juxtaposition. Then you go downstairs, and it's all beautiful colours, a bit like that back wall behind us now, and they're playing almost soft, almost like you're going into a Japanese spa or something like that, and it's just this fucking mental juxtaposition, and it's just the most wonderfully mad place. Who would you say is the Quentin Tarantino of chefs?
One might think of Rasmus Monk, I suppose, the alchemist.
Right. Sorry, who is he?
The world's best chef last year.
Yeah.
The fifth best by some ranking this year.
Based in
Copenhagen.
Yep.
So just down the road from Noma.
Yep.
And he has this massive, like a 50 experience menu. About 20 or 30 of the courses are in this sort of massive dome with projections of things that may match the dish. But because of the logistics, sometimes they don't match the dish.
Sure.
Which is sort of counterpoint, but not deliberate in a way. With all sorts of sort of shocking juxtapositions of some probably chicken eaten from their feet and taking it from a chicken cage, sort of stuff.
I've
Plastic
seen
fantastic
this.
And eating an eyeball and
I've seen this.
A wobbling brain is one of the other courses he brought out, where it's like a film prop of a head and take off the top of the skull, and inside there's a wobbling lamb brain dish.
Yeah. I've seen this guy on Instagram. I've seen. I know exactly who you're talking about. Interesting. What would you say? So, what are some other big films that you've studied? Again, just pulling on that thread of cinema to restaurants.
So there's some goes back to, I think, one of the striking ones is just from the 1950s, no, it must be about 50s, I think, early colour film. And there it just starts, the film starts with this nice meadows and trees and birds and things, with a nice happy pastoral music. And then it turns out where you're actually looking at is inside of a concentration camp.
Wow.
But you've been so misled by the music to think this is a happy, nice sort of thing we're about to see. And then it's like, all the thousands of shoes and whatever clothes of those who were gassed and such like. So that's a very shocking one.
It's interesting. Sorry to interrupt. Juxtaposition as a thing as a concept in branding, I think is really interesting. Or just in any experience. So I think our life, and I would love to explore to you. We sort of just meander along when we see, because like writers, I'm reading Dostoevsky, I can't pronounce it, but I'm reading Notes from the Underground, and you see it in some of the best writers. They'll use like I voluptuously stunk, or like, putting two words that shouldn't work together. The other brand I love at the minute is a brand called Bouba, which is a beer brand, but their whole thing is dangerously refreshing. You stick when you see juxtaposition, whether it's the cow meadows with a concentration camp, what's that? Why is that working? Or is that just, what's the crack of that?
Sort of jarring and shocking.
Yeah.
I mean, you might think, well, maybe in the case of say in the Clockwork Orange, does it make it less? You might think these things, this ultra violence on the one hand with this sort of pleasant music on the other, maybe they sort of average each other out and becomes less shocking, but somehow it does the opposite. It becomes more shocking.
Is that Stanley Kubrick?
Yeah.
Okay, because didn't he do 2001 Space?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And
why was he such a genius? I never really watched much of his stuff, but
yeah. Well, maybe thought carefully about the music he used. So whatever it was, I think it was 2001. They had some composer creating stuff, and then he sort of threw all that out and then took the music instead. I think so. Which turned out to be sort of the iconic whenever Whatever it's yeah,
It's
somewhere.
the opening scenes with all the weird monkeys, isn't it? I don't like. Because one of the things I'll do on a YouTube, I go on a YouTube rabbit hole, and I can end up watching like the creative process of directors, which I can endlessly talk get really into. But haven't really watched many of his films actually. And
Tarantino uses Counterpoint quite a lot as well.
Yeah.
Again, sort of violence and the pleasant stuff. And then the other one I came across, forget the name of the film, but we all know as a kind of an auditory leitmotif, sort of it's Jaws.
Yes.
And so this is it's almost like a audio branding. That's sort of in the film, but it's sort of this little auditory sequence of notes means Jaws, means danger. There because they didn't have the mechanitronics for the Jaws in time, so they had to use the sound in its place. And in some film, some comedy, and that was 50 years ago it came out. Was it 77? I think Peter Bentley. So they just had the 50th anniversary of Jaws a few months ago.
Yeah.
But even though we haven't seen the film for a long time, we still remember that sound is ominous. And some contemporary film has a scene where there's a young boy and what do they call them? A dangerous older woman in the swimming pool, and she rips off his. They both get into the pool, and then she rips off his swimming trunks, and this is played with the Jaws music, da 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 da. So it's kind of cross-referencing from one movie to another.
Yeah.
And then you get all the connotations and associations. And you think, well, that makes me think, well, I haven't got the answer to it yet, but how could you then apply that in a dining context to go beyond what we've been doing for years, which is just finding music to match what you're eating? To say, no, is there a culinary counterpoint? What would that be? And that's kind of something to explore as a...
Culinary counterpoint, interesting. Yeah, very interesting. I went to... And I don't think this is a colouring counterpoint, but I went to Sat Baines's restaurant, RSB in Nottingham. He was on the podcast last week. And I think it is using setting as a counterpoint. Because have you been to RSB?
No.
Okay, so again, it's kind of a juxtaposition. He says, and it's kind of a bit tongue-in-cheek, we are a working class 2-star restaurant. But you go... and I always say it was like entering gastronomic Narnia, right? So you go over this flyover, which is just like a... like in Nottingham, it's very industrial. The pylons, you've got these big pylons, which you feel like it's a very, very industrial. The walls are covered in graffiti. You go down this little lane, and it's literally just on basically a roundabout, like a very busy roundabout. And so you're going thinking, fucking hell, where are we going? And I remember when we pulled up, there was this blue light from the police. The police had pulled someone over, so you do not feel like you're going there. But that counterpoint of that context, and then you enter this gastronomic Narnia, and there's rabbits running around, and I do believe it's so important for that restaurant.
Yeah, and others too. It'd be a sort of Joseph Youssef when he was at in High Barnet, was at which building it was, and that was graffiti covered metal lift. Yeah, that kind of clanked up the 3 floors. Yeah. And all the way in is sort of horrible, and what are we doing here? And then you open the door, and suddenly you have this sort of a fabulous meal through to these. Was it the Spanish chefs of was it the El Cellar de Can Roca? And again, it's sort of an industrial bit of Girona. And that's sort of the idea again that there is this kind of contrast between the outside, which maybe makes the or even the Alchemist. There are no signs for the Alchemist at all. And you're sort of wandering down the. I guess most people come by taxi.
That?
So
Where's the
one in Copenhagen, 2 miles further along from the Noma restaurant on the outskirts of town. And I guess most people go by taxi. I'm too tight, so I walked there. My meal. And then the paving disappear, and it's just like a mud track and these big shipbuilding buildings in the background. You think, are we in the right place? And there's no signs. There's nothing. God, I wish we'd got the taxi here, and I don't have a phone, so I can't check where it is. And then there's just a door. It's like a massive door with sort of bronze, like some sort of Florentine church. And you arrive, and not at all what you expected, entirely inconsistent with the background. And then 7.5 hours, you kind of come out the door again, and
wow, the what what was I going to say? Sorry, the link between storytelling, cinema storytelling, and restaurants. I think you've told the story that maybe a restaurant in Japan where they pick you up in some random gaff. They blindfold you.
Yep.
That's one example. Just talk through that example. Then I'd love to know that any other weird restaurants where they can really almost take principles of being blindfolded in a random car would be an amazing opening scene to a film. It's also an amazing opening experience to a restaurant. Like, talk me through that bit, and then any other parallels.
Yeah. So yes, that's Chef Paul Perret in Ultraviolet in Shanghai.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Shanghai. Sorry, yeah.
And you pick up the guests, and so it's really a bit of but when does your experience start and end? And if you can curate the end bits, maybe you have a better overall experience. And so you're picked up in a minibus, and who knows who you're with, and then there'll be the other. I think they've got a little like they do in Asia, these sort of screen inside the minibus playing something, but that's kind of related to your experience, and then taken eventually to this, I guess, nondescript location where all the show begins with the projections on the walls and scents and costumes and everything. So a nice way of prolonging the experience, curating a journey that I do think others could learn from. I mean, I'm just doing something at the moment about sort of a travel, or particularly a plane flight. And there, this sort of thing, I mean, when does your journey begin and end? And if you're going first class or business class somewhere on a long haul, they can sort of do what they do only on the aeroplane, but the before and after, it's out of their control, but it's sort of so often so bad. How could they, if they thought about the journey starting earlier, then you might be able to design the experience differently to actually create a first class experience that should be from door to door, not just from boarding the plane to getting off.
Because there's Daniel Kahneman's peak end rule, isn't it? Which is how the experience ends is more important than the peak and the end. Because I think a lot of restaurants get that bit right. Like how they think about how the experience ends. Like even last night I was in a curry house, they give you an after 8, right? It's that little thing. But I always think, and I don't know, I've just kind of, this is my bastardized behavioural science basically, but is there a front end rule almost, which is the same thing to the point about the aeroplanes? Like, well, it doesn't start when you're at the airport, it starts when you probably book the thing, Is that something you think about? Like, so is that actually a thing, the front end rule? Or is that just me? Or is that actual? So you might think the rise of sharing plates and tasting menus is all around that, sort of the first bite standing out, maybe the last bite and the best bite, but the rest is wasted. Yeah. So there's no point having a big meal or a big course of something, because it'll be lost to memory. So if you're trying to create the sticky experiences, then make sure the first and the end and the best. And by having lots of small courses, you can have a lot more firsts and ends. Potential high points than just with a 3-course meal. So that's why. Do you think that's why the sharing plate things?
Yeah, in part, and tasting menus, because that gives you
more touch points.
So that's there's a starting and end for each dish, a starting and end for the whole meal, and then a starting and end for the whole experience from booking or checking online at the reviews and such like. And sort of favourite way of curating that. Probably from the Fat Duck years ago, where they would, you book your table months in advance, and then whatever a week or two before, they'd say send you a card saying, "Don't forget, you've got a booking with Heston 2 weeks from today." That's, they've already taken 25% of my money, so I was never going to forget. It's once in a lifetime. That's why they're doing that. But that wasn't the point. The point was that the card was fragranced with the smell of a sweet shop.
Oh, so they sent you a card?
Yeah.
Oh, like an actual...
Yeah, letter. Or card to say,
like a credit card?
No, a real card to say, don't forget your booking. But the point wasn't to remind you, but the point was just give you that first smell. The journey starts here in a way. And then when you arrived at the restaurant a week or two later, as you walked through the front door, somebody had rubbed the door frame with the smell of the sweet shop. Kind of a nostalgic, a happier, liked smell again. And then at the end of the meal, you get sent home with a bag of sweeties, a chocolate playing card, and and then that extends your experience out the other end. I think the same thing for we did a project in Jamaica with a multi-sensory hotel resort, and there worked with an artist to create the fragrance of the resort. That again, people will be sent home from that holiday with a bottle of the perfume of the resort, and again, just you get all the Proustian memories. It's a way of extending the experience. As for those people who ate their chocolates from the Fat Duck a month after, you're still reliving part of it.
Because the Proustian thing's the smell of madeleines, isn't it? Yeah, interesting. Because what was that? What was the? Did he just like the smell of madeleines?
Well, it just takes him back at some point.
How did he become? Why did Marcel Proust become so synonymous with that?
Because in whatever Remembrance of Things Past, there's a scene where the character is given a cup of linden tea, and a biscuit or Madeleine. In fact, it wasn't going to be a Madeleine, but in the final version it was. And that takes him back to his grandmother decades before.
Okay. So that's like your diesel smell with your grandmother.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I think this resort did it well to give you that smell to relive the experience afterwards, and things you can do at the sort of at the beginning or before it starts, start earlier, and after it ends to prolong it is because probably the experience itself is pretty short, and lots of the pleasure may come in the anticipation and in the remembering, and then if you have the actual experience designed with sort of this sort of stiction with his
what is it variable schedule reward theory? Like, when you vary the amount of stuff you're giving people, like it's basically the slot machines, exactly. How does that play out in restaurants?
I don't know. I mean, I suppose all those sharing plate restaurants, what if I reckon 2 or 3 plates each, and then they'll come when the chef's ready. And then isn't that variable? It's a variable reward.
Well, that's the that is the very. That's it. And maybe that's why Wagwan was so sort of forward thinking in the sense that it was the food comes whenever you're ready, breaks all the sort of category codes, and you're on a table next to people who you've never met before. Interesting. So there's Counterpoint. Any other lessons from cinema that you think could be really interesting for restaurants?
And there's probably the other thing that is interesting is this notion of diegetic and non-diegetic sound.
What's that?
So if you're watching the film and you hear some theme music, you don't think that's part of the. You don't think the characters can hear that.
Yeah.
That would be sort of non-diegetic. Whereas other sounds, if the characters walk into a noisy bar and you hear some thumping music, that would be diegetic. You think that music is part of the story, and the characters can hear that thing. So there are 2 kinds, and it's used differently. So how could you make the music in restaurants part of the story rather than just the background music? Make it diegetic, not non-diegetic. And then is there a way is it Blazing Saddles, a movie, Mel Gibson, is it?
Blazing Saddles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mel Brooks, 1988 or something like that.
Yeah.
Comedy. And it starts off Blazing Saddles. It's about cowboys and stuff, and it starts out in the Wild West, dusty stuff with the cowboys and the horses, and in the background is some famous who was it? Some famous, not Louis Armstrong, but somebody like that. Mm-hmm. Anything that's non-diegetic, the characters can't hear this jazz music, and then the camera pans round, and there is Louis Armstrong, whoever it was, actually playing in the middle of the Wild West.
Wow!
Sort of a playful switch from non-diegetic to diegetic, and so are some of these sort of tricks, things that could be in any way translated to the culinary setting as well. And then the other ones, sort of using mood music. It's very often how the music is used in film, and I guess that is used intuitively or already in the dining context. So some things are already there. Others, like this notion of the light motif of the Jaws. Could that be
Interesting.
Oh, if you played if you served your seafood with that rather than the sounds of the sea, does it get you somewhere interesting or whatever?
Yeah.
Or these sort of auditory leitmotifs or distinctive. How can you use that to take people and to tell stories or just think differently? Or go beyond just we're going to pair the music that matches the food.
No, it is fascinating. My mate's got a restaurant called Black Bear Burger in London, and he's ardently we play hip hop he believes, and I kind of do believe this, that hip hop is the best food to eat, really like big juicy burger too. They opened in Westfield in Shepherd's Bush, obviously way more family orientated. Couldn't put the hip hop on because the parents like this, the swearing and whatnot. And even he was saying just that the vibe of the restaurant's so different. I think they've now circumvented that by having like a non-explicit hip hop. But like it is really interesting how the sound, when you suddenly change a sound to or playlist to a restaurant, it completely changes the experience. So with Heston, so you work with him. Why was he? Why was he such a genius first, and then second, like what's maybe underrated about him, or what most a slightly different side to him that only you'd understand by spending so much time with him?
I think what struck me was his sort of open-mindedness and curiosity to learn, but to learn from unconventional sources. So back in whatever it was, over 20 years ago now, we're put in touch by a Swiss flavour house who we were both working with separately. He said, you two should meet, and got my invitation to the Fat Duck, and that was great. But then he'd come up to Oxford to see my lab, but also to other departments to see other professors, and just a curiosity about what's going on and knowledge. And that seemed to be pretty unique. Something I think that Chef Joseph Youssef does these days as well. He will talk to the surgeon, like Sir Roger Kneebone. Why? Well, that's nothing to do with cooking. Well, no, in fact, the surgeon in charge of his team in the operating theatre is also cutting and chopping and dicing, just as the chef is doing with his team or her team. So there's sort of parallels there about set and was it mise en place, setting all your tools out for service, but be it in the surgery or in the restaurant. So all these similarities. I forget which of the two of them, Joseph or Heston, would be talking to people like wallpaper designers. Again, another bizarre sort of left field thing.
Yeah.
Well, why? Because they've got some interesting insights about how they design, how they create, that could be spark something. And that was I hadn't come across many chefs before anyway, but haven't come across many who have the time or the interest to look outside traditional sources of inspiration.
Sir John Hegarty, who's the big marketing advertising guy, says originality comes from obscure sources. So I often think like looking at kind of cross categories, and Heston's arguably the most creative and original chef of the century, really. But it's interesting to say he's going to speak to wallpaper designers, all these weird, mad. There were whatever film at some point, some Californian, was it film creative or director or something coming over to sort of then think about how to score a meal like a film and stuff, and so there's openness to lots of different and a sort of hunger for lots of different things, and then having sufficient time to be able to sort of turn that into something magical. And for me, I'd spent a number of years working with big food companies, and they'd have their test kitchens, and we'd show them the science, and this is what the results show. If you redesign your thing this way, it should be better and more tastier, and then they'd go away and make something in the kitchens, and it'd be like horrible. You could sort of see the science was in there, but it wasn't desirable. And I think these sort of top chefs have the ability to take the things that they're interested in as a source of inspiration, and then create the magical, the memorable, and do it potentially very quickly. For me, I spent sort of first 15 years working on car warning signals and technology for drivers,
And they even have got the perfect result for a car company. It'd be 20 years before that result made it into a car you could buy in the high street because of the time scales of innovation and process. Whereas with a chef, if they like an idea, then it could be next month. You have something on the menu that, and that was it. And so that sort of led then to things like the sort of sound of the sea dish. That we had a festival here in Oxford, Art and Science Festival in 2006 or 7. And 150 people had paid their money and expected to hear him and me and taste something. We had nothing ready the day or two before. So he brought about a van of oysters and some bacon and egg ice cream that was popular at the time in his restaurant. And we split the audience in two and played sizzling bacon sounds or farmyard chicken sounds for the ice cream. And bizarrely, it flipped the flavour.
What do you mean? So as in...
So the bacony flavour was much more intense with the sizzling bacon sounds. And the eggy flavour of the ice cream was much more intense with the...
Yeah.
And then we did the sounds of the sea while eating the oysters versus, I think, probably the farmyard chickens again or something else. And again, the oysters were rated as significantly nicer, but no more salty, listening to the sounds of the sea. So that was like something done at the last minute out of desperation. We never thought it would work, but we had to do something with these 150 people, and it did work. And then the team to go back to Bray and a month or two later come back with the sound of the sea dish that became the signature dish. Still there 20 years later on the menu is great. And then through that, along with Joseph these days in London, I'll say, there are these amazing illusions like the duck rabbit illusion or the all these other amazing things in visual textbooks, visual perception textbooks.
What's the duck rabbit?
It's like something from the 1890s, just a line drawing, and it looks either like a duck or like a rabbit. And the beak of the duck can be the ears of the rabbit.
Oh,
so it's like a bistable.
Yes, I've seen this. Yeah.
I say, could we make like an edible illusion?
Is that the same one when you've got the two faces in and it's a wine glass? Have you seen that?
That could be like I think it's the Reuben vase. I think.
Okay,
They
sorry,
say. It looks like but another version you can see one thing or the other.
Yeah.
So the number of these illusions that flip, they're all visual. So I sort of showed them to Joseph and said, you could make a culinary version of that because it'd be cool to have like an edible illusion or. And a couple of dishes came out. He made a duck rabbit one because they're sort of sustainable ingredients, and we have a plate that you could rotate to make it more duck-like or more rabbit-like with the music that he'd sourced of Looney Tunes with it's duck season, it's wabbit season, it's duck season, wabbit season.
Oh wow!
So it triggers nostalgia, and you got what you're hearing going back and forth, duck rabbit. What you're seeing on the plate, duck or rabbit, duck rabbit. And our question was whether you could then flip the flavour of the dish that it would taste more duck-like when you see or heard a duck. And another one that's like a Picasso dish, which is a great one of which just looks like red splotches, but in fact it's a picture of Picasso, and you can't see it to begin with, or only 4 out of 100 diners can see it. And then after a while, suddenly everyone can see it, or 96, and you can hear going around the restaurant, so suddenly, and then people trying to explain it to each other. So, and this is, and once you can see Picasso in the plate, you can't believe you could not have seen it before. So it's kind of gastro porn. It's got a sonic seasoning sort of soundscape of a duck being chased and then chopped. And,
gastro porn.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah.
What is it?
That's just sort of people's fascination with beautiful images of food. And sort of gastro porn, food porn would be, term probably first captured in 1970s.
Yeah.
I think with these kind of cookbooks with nouvelle cuisine, with these delicious looking plates of food, and now kind of gone bonanza with all the social media and people, probably food porn and one of the most things searched for terms on the internet, and then all the sort of food television everywhere and mukbang and so it's just that interest in and desire to create beautiful looking food images, whether or not they taste good.
Yeah. What's the link with nature when we're in nature and art, and then we can use that as a context to explore like the beauty, the gastro porn? So like, when we look at art, or when we look at a beautiful vista, like your home in Colombia, how are they similar? How are they different?
So probably only it depends what the art is portraying, but maybe that is, I would say, sort of potentially uplifting, maybe viewing art, and makes us have bigger, grander thoughts, and maybe connects us. The nature might do the same thing, but it's probably also triggering biophilia and allowing us to recover our mental resources.
Is that what nature does?
Yep. So it seems like, and it can be real nature or it can be digital nature. It can be a plastic plant or a real tree, doesn't seem to matter. And it can be the sight of nature, the blues and greens of water and plants. It can be the smell of nature, maybe. It can be the sounds of nature, water, the birds. And the more bird species you can hear, the more relaxed and recovered you'll feel after. And for me, being a multisensory scientist, it's all about, well, how can you combine those sensory elements to give the biggest sort of mental boost? Was it about 2003? I did a big report for ICI, The Secret of the Senses, and sort of biophilia. This, the beneficial effects of being in nature was kind of a new area, and it's really hard to believe some of the findings they were suggesting.
Such as
that patients recover if your hospital bed looks out at nature rather than the brick wall.
Wow.
And roll clocks forward, when I did my sense hacking book in 2021, I revisited all the nature effect literature, and it's just grown exponentially. And the beneficial effects, it could be just your screensaver when you turn your computer on. That's got a beautiful natural scene, and staring at that for a few seconds will probably improve
That's
your
something
performance.
Apple always do. Yeah. They always have that. I think it was Yosemite or whatever. Yeah. Interesting.
And so that's sort of amazing, and I can sort of feel it myself in the garden in Colombia when it's sort of all the senses are stimulated, and with lots of birds and lots of water features now, and lots of fragrant plants, and it either, some people say it's just connection to nature full stop, makes us feel more. Others would say, well, no, the more the nature environment mirrors the Ethiopian highlands where we evolved, the happier we will be. And so that's why, for example, when people go from North America, this is Justin colleagues in 2019, they went from the hottest to the coldest state in North America, from Alaska to Texas, and asked people, how do you set your thermostat and humidity in the home? And regardless of the temperature of the state, it turned out that everyone set the same humidity and temperature pretty much.
Wow.
And then you say, look at world climate charts and say, where in the world is the most similar to what people choose for their own homes? And it's the Ethiopian highlands of all the climates on the earth. So so then the suggestion is we're picking our own homes to try and make them like the environments we evolved in. And hence the nature environment might trigger that. It might be that if you walk down the street in London or on a tube, you're always having to judge, sort of move aside from people and judge, are you going to the left or the right? Can I cross the road now or not? And that takes a lot of our attention to constantly monitor for threats. And whereas in nature, that's kind of just sort of endlessly sort of fascinating, but doesn't really require us to really pay attention. We can just sort of let ourselves go, and that sort of allows us to recharge our mental batteries, it's suggested.
Yeah, because I feel like cities are amazing, but they're also quite taxing, and they're on your central nervous system, because you're just, as you say, especially in London, like I feel like even coming up here and walking on the street here, it's just like, do you know what I mean? Whereas walking through London, which I've been where I live, it's just mad. It's like a mental.
And so this is more and more research showing the beneficial effects, even of short-term exposure. We did. I've been on the radio for saying even if you lunch hour, then try and get outside, and a bit of nature will have a beneficial effect on your performance later in the day. We did a nice project with South Western trains. We've got a new quiet carriages.
They're amazing. That train?
Yeah.
So when I used to live back home in Surrey, I used to get that train in, and it was just so outdated, rackety as fuck. Like it was just. The new trains they've got with so they've gone from that red and orange and blue colour to this just like nice soft blue, but the inside is insane. Like what's happened with that?
I don't know what the engineering wise they've done for it, but they knew they've got the new quieter train. But then sort of how do you work with that? So we worked with them and had commuters going on a tour around London. And we had them listening to their favourite podcast or music for 15, 20 minutes, or sitting there quietly for 20 minutes, enjoying the quietness of the train, or 15 to 20 minutes with nature soundscapes, especially designed. and people felt much more relaxed with the nature soundscapes than with their own or with anything else. And just wandering up and down the carriage as we were running it, I could just see people in the nature condition, just sort of beatific with their eyes closed, smiling, relaxed, almost asleep, and you could just see the nature effect right there.
Wow.
And that can sort of then help to can be deliberately incorporated. So the Southwest Trains then has a whole range of nature soundscapes you can listen to for the journeys that work with the technological innovation. And so this is all going on. We can build it into our own lives. We've now done research showing that if you are doing any kind of shopping online, if you have nature soundscapes, you make more sustainable, healthier choices, be it for food, be it for timeshares, for travel or other stuff.
Wow.
It's sort of nudging us in a good way. And also, parallel, given the interest in restaurants, I was kind of curious why, of these chefs who are playing with technology and trying to create atmospheres and environments and contexts in their restaurants, like Ultraviolet in Shanghai, like Joseph Youssef in Kitchen Theory or Heston with the Sounds of the Sea, why do they always seem to go for nature? Heston has the sounds of the sea, on the seaside. Joseph will have the forest floor with the smell of the geosmin after it's rained, with the sounds of the forest, with the projections of the greens of the trees. And again, it seemed the chefs were choosing to recreate nature. They could have chosen to recreate the city centre, outer space, underwater, but it's always nature. And then I think this last year's Restaurant of the Year in the UK or something, like it was a Vietnamese restaurant in London, I think, but the picture shows us a whole wall of like a living wall of plants.
Wow.
And it's nature again. So we just did a paper with one of my students, Mayuka, just looking at this and saying maybe the chefs have intuitively picked up that by having nature in their restaurants, that will not only make people more relaxed, trigger the nature effect so people will enjoy their experience more, but may also be congruent and convey notions of naturalness in the food. And that sort of idea can then be extended, of course, to hospitality, to hotels, and or to workplaces. And
interesting. What's going on when we go into spas? Like, why have humans? When did the spa thing start, and why have we always been? Because we had the Roman spas in Bath. What's happening centrally? I kind of get it from going in with myself, but from the science side of it.
So these days, well, we might say our skin's our biggest sensory organ. 18 to 22% of mass is just our skin sheet, full of receptors.
Yeah.
But we kind of ignore it mostly. We don't think about stimulating our sense of touch in the way that we do stimulate our ears with music and our nose with fragrance and flavours and so on. And that's important because the skin is full of all sorts of receptors for temperature, for pressure, for vibration, for recentishly discovered pleasure receptors in the hairy skin that love being stroked at 5 to 10 centimeters a second, that release opioids into the skin and pleasure sort of stuff. And yet, in today's society, we're living what Tiffany Field calls a touch hunger. Parents won't touch children for fear of litigation. No one wants to touch older people as we get to older population. You can't touch in the workplace, so sort of interpersonal touch is sort of verboten these days. So we're not stimulating the skin as much as perhaps we should. And hence we maybe fulfill that need for touch through going to the sharper image stores in the States and getting massage chairs and scratchy spider things for your head and vibrating chairs for your car and such like. Or you go to a spa, maybe get the tactile stimulation, either from massage, but then also through thermal of the sauna and steam room. And that, is sort of important. Important and beneficial thing, and then of course you've got the calming music, and you've got the nature smells. So it's like a multi-sensory experience, but maybe a large part making up for the touch hunger in the contemporary. And an interesting. I mean, sort of just submitted a paper yesterday with a colleague all about sort of humidity. As what is humidity, and it's going to get much worse as global temperatures rise, and it causes all sorts of disease. But it's also humidity and temperature used in sort of steam treatments in the Victorian era for well-being, and also the saunas and spas. Sort of interesting space of normally humidity is really bad, but then we deliberately choose to go into the steam room and expose ourselves to unpleasant levels of, but it's actually pleasurable. So how does that work?
Yeah, interesting. What's with music? So obviously we were recording this before Christmas, in December. As I was driving up this morning, I think heart Christmas songs. I want to feel a bit Christmassy, right? I think what was that song? Queen, "Thank God It's Christmas" came on. I haven't heard it in a year. It viscerally, like palpably, punches your soul, and this fucking weird feelings happening. What is happening when we're listening to music? And that is, like, why do humans love music? That's a big question. But like, any understanding on that?
Or maybe humans like dancing, and well, it's not me, but many humans out here like dancing. And music is probably the only sense that gives us the sense of wanting to move and of rhythm. It's hard to kind of communicate that through other senses by flashing lights or auditory and audition and rhythm and meter and beat. Kind of go together. And even for any little babies, if they're sung to, will sort of move in time to the lullabies or the. So there's a desire to kind of synchronize movement and with music. So I guess it sort of brings people together as well. And for the Christmas things, maybe it's an auditory Proust effect in a way.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, it's the Madeleines for your ear. Yeah, interesting.
That's fine, but then sometimes it will annoy you when it's when stores use it. Christmas, you can't get away from it. Blasting out Christmas songs, and you feel like you're being manipulated.
Yeah.
So it turns a bit in the context, but we did one project years ago where we had for Mr. Kipling's mince pies.
Yeah.
And we had the smell of Christmas, the kind of the cloves and the cinnamon and the oranges, with the sight of Christmas with a fir tree and snow and flashing lights, and the sounds as well. So a multi-sense of Christmas, and could show that. It definitely made people want to eat more mince pies.
Yeah, of course.
By stimulating the different senses. Just takes us, I guess.
Yeah, I think the best way is like it's the Proustian effect for your earbuds. For your interesting.
And then by taking us back, then play triggers the same feelings we had and memories and nostalgia and warm feeling of that time.
Yeah. The couple more things, then we'll wrap this up. I'm actually loving our conversation, Charles. What do you think are some of the most overrated and also underrated kind of hacks people can do to improve the experience of their restaurant?
I'm sick to death of the sharing plates, and it'll come when it's when it'll come. So that's overrated, I think, but maybe it's effective.
Why are you sick to death of that?
Because it's on trend, and they're all doing it, and it's we've got a new concept. It's called sharing plates. And just so you make me buy more, and
yeah.
Can't get away from it. Not another restaurant with a sharing plate concept.
Is it? How does it manipulate you? It's the sharing plates. Is it?
You end up buying more
because it's actually giving you less food.
Yeah, and then more dishes, and then you can't. It takes it out of your control when they might all come at the same time. But I want my starter and I want my main course, and I don't want to share it. In fact, with them. I ordered the spicy one. I want the spicy one, not to. So there's all kinds of wrong for me. I do think so many chefs focus just on very often just focus on the food, and that's like it. And they don't think about the music that's playing. They don't think about necessarily how important naming the dishes is. And or the weight of the cutlery. I'll say one of the simplest hacks is just to give people heavier cutlery and makes food taste better.
What about the naming of the dishes? Isn't the Patagonian toothfish?
Yep.
What they changed that to Chilean sea bass? Same
Massive,
thing.
Yep. And 1,200% increase in documented sales in UK, North America, and Australia.
So it's Patagonian
toothfish.
to red, chili sea bass.
Chili and sea bass.
Chili and sea bass.
And everyone's sort of, I think everyone's probably ordered the sea bass, and it sounds nicer, but the same thing. It's sustainable, healthy.
Any other examples of that?
That might be probably the best one. I'll say people at home, often when you cook, then you just think about the ingredients and the cooking times and stuff, and you don't think about what it's going to be called. But when you go on the airplane and they just say, chicken or fish, I think you've lost me already. It's never going to taste good. That's all you can think to say about it. The other one I'm interested in at the minute is that my brother's got a restaurant just on the outskirts of town these days, Wharton Kitchen Garden, and he had a dish for Chinese New Year called crispy duck salad for the Chinese audience. But it's sold out, and he's kept it on the menu ever since. And what's going on with that? Why has that been such a big seller? I'm sure it's about the name. Is it, the salad makes it sound healthy, but then duck makes it sound nice? Crispy. Is it a crispy? Yep, yeah. Crispy descriptor. So what I'd like to do is, put it on the menu for this week, and then the next week take the crispy bit off and see how much. But I think that sensory descriptor is playing a huge role. I
think that's really important with brands as well, in supermarkets, is using taste descriptive words. I think Corsten Press do it really well, like mouth watering, but using taste descriptive words on pack is really a great way to get that storytelling and pull. And clearly increases sales, not just of the Patagonian toothfish, but the Chilean sea bass, but also we're trying to get people to eat more vegetables and calling them zingy, twisted, dynamite beets and zingy, twisted carrots. But works much better than saying healthy or good for you or something like that. Yeah.
I guess obviously things can go too far and get pretentious, but thinking a bit more carefully about just the importance of naming. And if my brother ever lets me experiment with his guests with the crispy thing, then where would you how you could use that, and which other dishes could be made more become bestsellers simply by crispy, the crunchy, the crackly, the sizzling,
sizzling bacon. It's well, on that note, we'll wrap this up, but someone always says sell the sizzle, not the bacon, and I think that's
no, they don't say that at all. It's Elmer Wheeler, 1936. Sell the sizzle, not the steak. It's the steak that sells the sizzle, not the steak.
That's right. I thought it was sell the sizzle, not the bacon. No, interesting.
And you can still see, actually, I've got a little clip. It's available online of Elmer Wheeler doing
I thought it was sell the sizzle, not the bacon. That's hilarious. I've absolutely loved our conversation. Thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure. And my brain is just exploding with wisdom. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you were loving the episode. I'd appreciate a really small yet significant favour, por favor. Please may you click the subscribe button, get in the comments, tell me what you think about the episode, tell me what you think we did on the show. It may not seem much, but it really helps us grow and helps us get bigger guests. Thank you so much.